All right. All right. Welcome back to the Behind the Back podcast. We're your host. I'm Marcos Conan Agrone, slowly crying inside. And next to me here is Ben the Jet Retz. Ben, how you feeling, brother?
Loudly celebrating, not silently crying.
Yes, sir. Congratulations on securing the number one seed. So we will be breaking down what happened over the weekend. Very disappointing on my end and very successful over here for the 49ers. So we will start here with the 49ers. Ben, the Niners secured the one seed with a very nice showing over Washington. Hung around a little longer than they should have before you guys finally put them away. But how'd you feel, about that game? Takeaways.
I thought the first half was interesting. Got to hand it to the Commanders. They really, for no reason, showed up to play. They didn't have a reason to play, but they did.
Right.
And Sam Howell, man, he's a good quarterback. Like, gotta give him some credit there. He definitely knows how to run an offense. Let's put it that way. But he showed some, he showed some things that were evident why Washington struggled as much as they did offensively. And it really showed in the second half when the Niners took over. But I wasn't so much thrilled with the end of that game as I was with the end of your game, because it meant that now the Niners don't have to play for anything next week.
Yep, we got Sam Darnold versus Carson Wentz this weekend. That's gonna be that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild matchup for sure. No, I was stoked. I think that second half we made the adjustments that needed to be made to come out and kind of take command of that game and obviously run away with it. So it was a good showing for the boys. I was happy to see them get officially back on track after everything. So it's a good feel going into the playoffs. I feel like this team is ready.
That's great. So speaking of being ready, so now, resting some guys this next week. Very clearly, I know, with Darnold starting and everything. Do you think that there might be a chance, because there's always a chance that this happens, but how worried about you, how worried are you that they could be a little rusty going into their first matchup in the divisional round, because they're going to be some of these starters are going to be resting up to 3 games technically. So how do you feel about that?
It's a legit concern. When you get 3 weeks off like that, where you don't take a snap that actually means something, it can hinder your regular play. I'm not super concerned with it, because I feel like, number one, we're gonna play a lot of guys, but not a ton of minutes. We're definitely sitting Brock the whole game. There was an official list that came out of all the guys that are sitting. I don't have it to hand right now, but I'll just put it this way. Yes, there's always a concern when you sit guys for 3 weeks, but I feel like with the way that the Niners practice, it's not something that we need to worry about too much. The Niners have been known to practice very aggressively. They go at each other. It's a high tempo practice all the time. That's how Kyle leads this team. That's kind of how business as usual for this team. So I think they're still going to be ready come the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see who our first matchup is, and I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I didn't even know this or really pay attention to it until today. I saw just kind of how the playoff bracket works, and it's not a fixed bracket. So, even if, whoever's the 5th seed, whether it's the Eagles or Cowboys, even if let's say whoever the 5th seed is, if they win, if the 6th seed or the 7th seed upsets their matchup, they would be the first ones to end up playing the Niners. So I found that to be interesting in the sense that your matchup may be a surprise. It's not dead set on the 5th seed, or it could be the 7th, it could be the 6th. So that would be it'll be interesting to see who you actually end up getting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, but no, yeah, congrats on getting the 1 seed. That's huge, especially Christian McCaffrey tweaked his
His calf.
calf. Yeah, going into it. So I do agree with you that I think the Niners are the kind of team that will be fine off of a bye. Maybe just a little rust to shake off, but I mean, I don't think it will be that big of a detriment. I think that it was crucial for you guys to get the 1 seed, especially. So
Yeah, another thing, like for me, when the preseason started and Brock took his first snap, I think it was preseason game 3 or 4. I can't remember which one it was, but he took his first snap, and it was the first time he really drove down the field with, meaningful snaps. He went all the way down the field, and it was like business as usual with all those guys. And that's kind of another reason why I'm not overly concerned, is because there's more time in between that, and he was coming off of a surgery. Like, I don't think there's too much to worry about here. Obviously, yeah, there could be rust to shake off, but give it one drive and it's back to business as usual.
yeah, and I've heard of some coaches in that particular situation, like same as you guys, where you really don't have anything to play for. If you really wanted to keep the guys motivated during the week, you don't tell them that that you're going to sit them, you're going to play 1 or 2 series, and then we'll pull you guys out, and then here you go. Like, now you're rested the whole time. It's basically 3 weeks rest, but then it keeps the guys motivated. But I don't think the Niners are a team that needs to worry about being motivated. So I know the goal,
Right.
like everyone knows what the goal is for the Niners. They're, them and the Ravens are the 2-tier teams that wouldn't really be worried about in terms of rest, even though on the Ravens side of things, it did backfire on them last time. They were the 1 seed. I think this was Lamar's MVP year 2019. So they're set up for the exact same thing, although they did just sign Dalvin Cook. So that'll be an interesting, development for them later on. But, it does happen where the rust, you could fall behind and it takes a little bit to wake up. But again, depending on who your matchup is, I'm also not that worried. I'm not that worried for you. So
Yeah, I'm really more so just excited to kick my feet up on the table and enjoy the first round of the playoffs, knowing I don't have to watch my team and be stressed about my team for 1 week.
yeah, and they're going to get some awesome first round matchups too. So it'll be a nice week to just watch and not have to worry about anything. So for sure. I was thinking about it, like just now that I know how the playoffs kind of work a little bit more, it's got me more juiced, and now I'm rooting more for the underdog because of the position the Eagles are going to be in. So before we get going, congrats also on the Niners for having a bunch of Pro Bowl players. They're most in the league, even though there was a few obvious snubs in there. And don't know if you want to get into that at all.
I just don't understand how the hell you can leave Brandon Ayuk off that list.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one that's really getting me. How is Brandon not? It blows my mind. He leads all wide receivers in the NFC right now, and he's not there.
Yeah.
It's look, none of those guys are going to be there ultimately. It's just annoying, the fact that he didn't get it. I'm salty.
And funny as heck that Brock Purdy led all the votes. He got every vote there. So, for all the Brock haters, continue.
That's another thing. It kind of builds off your underdog thing. I mean, there are people out there that root for that underdog.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that showed, with the voting this year, especially with the Niners having 3 guys in the top 5 vote getters. They had Brock Purdy number 1, Christian McCaffrey number 2, and George Kittle number 4.
Of course.
Yeah, and I mean, George Kittle is playing out of his mind. He's probably the best tight end in the league right now, just with how well he's been playing this season. And considering Travis Kelce, he's getting a lot of hate on one side, and then he's getting a lot of love on another side. And somewhere in between, he's just not putting up the numbers he needs to. So
exactly.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to see how many guys got a Pro Bowl call this year. I think it's exciting.
Yeah. No, and again, congrats. Like, you guys have far and away been the best team in the NFL this year. And it goes to show just how much talent is on this team and why they are the scariest threat moving forward. So any final thoughts on the Niners clinching the 1 seed before you take a 2-week break here?
Bang, bang, man. They deserve it. This is the best team in the NFC. They've been the best team in the NFC. It's just, it was a matter of putting together the wins that they needed to, and obviously progressing through the season, right? So
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm thrilled. I'm excited. Now the season really begins.
Yes, indeed. And we'll move on now to what I'm trying to find is, find optimism in this. So for the audio listeners, I am wearing one of, so let's put it this way. Those third-party websites where you go out and buy a $30 jersey and you're thinking, "Oh man, there's no way this jersey could be the real thing." And when you get it, it's like they did patchwork of random jerseys from past years past, and they put it all together in one jersey with different colors that don't match. Like, this is how I'm wearing this as an example of the kind of the version of my team that I'm seeing. It looks like I'm watching the Pennsylvania Eagles and not the Philadelphia Eagles. It's it's terrible. So the Arizona Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon, came in and got his revenge against Philly and walked away with the win, 35-31, in what was arguably the worst loss in the Nick Sirianni era. Like, there's no real way to sugarcoat it. Like, it was devastating, like, watching it, because especially as the game was getting, going more and more along, I just knew that we couldn't stop them. And no matter what we tried, there was just no shot that we were going to stop them. And Jonathan Gannon outcoached Nick Sirianni straight up. Like, at first I was confused, especially in the fourth quarter when he did the onside kick with about 6-ish minutes to go. The question was, oh, why would they give the Eagles the ball with that, that much time? You're giving them a shorter field. Well, I mean, in theory, they have nothing to play for. So might as well take a risk, see if you can get the ball back, because throughout that entire second half, the Eagles could not stop them. No matter what, they were just driving up the field, consecutive possessions and just scoring touchdowns. We could not stop the run. They ran 40 times for 220 yards.
Holy crap.
James Conner and Michael Carter? I forget the name of their other halfback, forgive me, but they were cooking us. And
yeah, Michael Carter, you were right.
So they were just running the ball at us, and there was nothing we can do to stop them. The problem was the Eagles just, again, and I've alluded to this a few times, you just don't have the personnel. And with Matt Patricia's style of defense, it just doesn't work. Like, I was watching the play sheet on the Ringer NFL show by Ben Solak, and he is also a beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, so I get a lot of his content a lot. And he broke down basically just the responses that the Eagles were trying to do for this Arizona Cardinals defense, because the way the Eagles like to play is they like to play a 5-down front for their run defense, where they have, 3 defensive tackles, Fletcher, Jordan Davis, and Milton Williams. Then they have Reddick and Sweat on the edge. And when you really think about it, Sweat and Reddick are just rushers. That's really what they are. They're not guys who are ever going to really want to drop back in coverage. They can't be asked to do those things because they're purely just rushers who come from the outside. So they come out in this front, and they came out in this front because the Cardinals played big. They played 2 tight ends, 3 tight end sets. And Jonathan Gannon just knew that we were going to, like, the Eagles would respond. And with, oh, you're playing more than 1 tight end, 5 down front. Oh, you're playing the 1 tight end, 4 down front. And that was it. Like, there was no stylistic, schematic way that the Eagles were trying to be creative or try to come up with a stunt or anything. But the issue is they can't do it because they don't have the guys. They don't have. If the Eagles had a Fred Warner, a Dre Greenlaw just chilling in the middle, then they could get a little more creative with how they approach these fronts. They can stunt a little more because they have a dog on the outside who can cover, who can bull rush, find the gap. The Eagles are undersized on linebacker, and they're just not that great in corners right now. And the Cardinals just took advantage of that. They took advantage of the light box, and they just ran it up our throats. And when we tried to shift the defensive line, they just countered and run through the wide open gap. And we were just giving them 10 plus yards the whole time.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's one of the problems is there's weaknesses in so many spots where there's only so much hiding you can do, right? Because obviously every team, with exception to 1 or 2 every single season, has weaknesses. And The trick is finding what those weaknesses are and then hiding them by, excelling at another spot, right? And that's what the Niners did at the trade deadline with the addition of Chase Young. That was hiding our weakness in the secondary. And since then, the secondary's been phenomenal because they don't have to guard for as long, right? They don't have to stay tight for as long, and they can drop back into different coverages. So the problem with the Eagles is they only have a few ways that they can hide these weaknesses. And because there's only a few ways to do it, it gets to a point where it's so repetitive and you see the same style defense, the same style offense so much that now teams, they do have that blueprint because they understand and they're seeing the same things week in and week out. And they're also seeing the same failures from a position or, a defense or an offense. You know what I mean? Like it's spots. And that's where teams are taking advantage in the Eagles. And I am nervous for you guys going into the playoffs because playoff teams know how to take advantage of those weaknesses.
This isn't a fixable issue. That's the problem. Like, this is truly like being exposed. That is the one thing that, the blueprint has been discovered, and it's been discovered over the past few weeks as we play these tougher teams that like to play big and run the ball. And if we match up against a team like the Cowboys, we would stand a better chance than if we were to go up against the Niners for the sake of the Cowboys don't like to run the ball that much. Like, if we'll take Dak trying to throw on us all the time, even if it does end up failing, we will have a better shot. Like, in reality. But if we go up against the Niners, if we go up against a team like the Cardinals, for some reason, they just have our kryptonite and they can chew. They played very much like the Eagles of last year. Run the ball down your throat, chew clock. Kyler's going to make some good plays, and then you'll finish drives, and no one can stop you. And you just eat away at the clock, and the other offense will never touch the ball. And that was the strategy the Eagles employed, and Jonathan Gannon did a great job of just doing the same thing, being familiar. He's like, I can pick on this guy, I can pick on this scheme, do it over and over and over again. Oh, they adjusted? Counter. They had counters because the Eagles only had so many answers, like you mentioned. When you have so many answers, it's a really easy test to figure out, and everybody's going to continue to pick on that as the playoffs start. And certain teams won't be able to do that. Like the Giants could try, but they failed because they just don't have the guys who can make that happen. The Arizona Cardinals, offensive line did a really good job of holding up and did a really good job of just getting to that second level and making the linebackers try to win. And we just don't have the guys. Shaq Leonard, Nick Morrow. We're getting Zach Cunningham back, but it's still the same issue. That none of that gets fixed. And this goes back to Howie and committing to, something that's worked. It's gotten him a Super Bowl and got him to another Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. You get the defensive line, get corners who can actually cover, and that worked. But then we banked on the defensive line getting home, and it hasn't. We banked on our corners not falling off, and they have. And now we're stuck where this is what we have, and there's nothing that we can really do about it. And there was the takeaways from this game was that the team is in utter disarray. They're like broken. The offense isn't having fun again, and AJ's pissed, and everyone looks pissed, and nobody seems to trust his coaching staff. Now, right after the game, immediately after the game, I shared those sentiments. I truly felt like you and I hung out on New Year's Day, and I came over to your place, and I said in my overreaction phase, like, I want this team to tank right now. I just want this team to just lose this week, lose the first round, and then they'll fire Nick Sirianni, bring Ben Johnson in the building, and just start it over, just restart, right? So, and you were like, dude, you just said the opposite of this last week. And I was like, I know, I don't care, dude, because I want something different. And, taking a few days now, getting more information in the building. AJ came out and said that today he spoke to the reporters for about 13 minutes because he's been declining to speak over the past couple weeks. And he really took a mature approach by saying, because teammates Jason Kelce, Mailata, Hurts have had to kind of answer questions on his behalf because they're asking about him. They're like, why isn't AJ speaking? And AJ said, I need time to cool down because I don't have anything good to say. And I'm going to come off like a monster, quote, that was an actual quote, if I say anything negative. And it's true because people look at wide receivers like divas. When they have something to say, they're like, oh, they're not getting targets, all this stuff. And AJ apologized to the team, and he was, he earned, he kind of showed the leadership that he has. And he backed Sirianni, saying that he respects the hell out of him. And some of the and Nick Sirianni has been taking the fall for mistakes that have been theirs. And so, for example, he used an example of the Seattle game. That last play that led to the interception, that was the goal ball, and I went on a rant saying, like, Nick Sirianni's a game manager. Why don't you go for the field goal in the situation? Go for that spot. AJ came out and said that was improvised. That was the players making the decision to change the play. And Nick Sirianni went out on afterwards for the interview and said that he was trying to get a pass interference call because he made himself look bad, so the players didn't take the heat. And that was and AJ said that's something that, earns his respect, that he respects the hell out of Nick Sirianni. He loves playing for him. So you step back, and I'm like, okay, it's been 50 games with the Eagles now. That was his 50th game. He is 34-16. That's an awesome record. But, that doesn't excuse the limitations that are clearly shown by him. I'm not going to excuse him entirely. But I do believe that he will get at least another year of a leash to kind of, even if this thing tail spins and we do lose these next 2 games, he'll still get a leash. I'm not nervous about that. I still stand by what I said last week, that he will have at least one more chance to kind of fix this. But the problem is he doesn't call plays. And coaches that don't call plays and, want to be the managers of the game need to be perfect. And he's been very far from, even since the Super Bowl, where he made some crucial errors. And when you pride yourself on doing that, if you can't execute there, then what are you really good for? And those are the questions that you need to, pay attention to when the team is struggling. But the players back the coaches. The AJ Brown said it was the players' execution, the players just not doing the right things. And he was visibly shaking his head on the in the last possession the Eagles had, or the second to last possession, where they were backed up. They had the 1st and 20 off of the penalty. Then they would do 2 QB runs and then a wide receiver screen play. And after the wide receiver screen play, he was shaking his head, and people thought it was because he was upset at the play call or that it didn't go his way. He was mad because Devontae got hurt on that play. He was like, I need my guy Smitty because he helps me play well too. And again, you and I call for the screens. They got to stop. Guys are getting hurt unnecessarily. They got to come up with something a little more creative. I understand you have Jake Elliott and he can make a field goal, but at that point, if you're going to settle for a field goal, you're already in field goal range. Take a shot. So again, there are schematic issues that, just got to fix, and you got to play more aggressive, especially in the playoffs. It's just, you're going to have to take those risks. You can't play not to lose, because that's exactly what the Eagles did.
No, that's it kind of makes the situation you guys are in that much better then, because it makes more sense for a team who's got everything to lose, or rather got nothing to lose. I'm sorry. It makes more sense for a team that's got nothing to lose to take these kind of risks in these shots, right? And so, whereas if the Eagles went into this still as the number 1 seed, and, it was, predictable. Everybody was figuring out how the Eagles are going, but it had worked to that point, quote unquote. They wouldn't be taking those shots, right?
Right.
Even though you guys do have at least a good enough offense to take those shots. There are guys who can answer that call, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a good spot to be in, because it's well, I mean, shoot, we had a really good, successful first half of the season, first 3 quarters of the season, and at the end of it, it kind of fell apart because teams started figuring us out. Injuries, start naming, right? Now's the time to start taking those shots, because, I mean, shoot, we don't have necessarily a great shot at the Super Bowl, but we do have a shot at whoever's going up against us, right? Whoever the team is that you guys are matched up against, that's a legit shot.
Right.
They're there just like you guys are. And so that's kind of got to be the mentality, is just take the shots, on fourth down, even when it's 4th and 3. I mean, even though it hasn't worked as of the last, however many weeks, it's still got to be there.
Mm-hmm. And execution needs to be there. They need to play. They need to show up. Like, you have AJ Brown, you have Jalen Hurts, you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, you have DeAndre Swift. This is the first time in Eagles history where you had 2 receivers have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and DeAndre Swift first time hitting 1,000 yards for his career. Like, we have the weapons on offense, and our offense is going to go into the playoffs healthy, most likely. Given whatever happens here, it's MetLife Stadium. I'm praying for the absolute best, so you never know what can happen there. And our defense is going to be healthier. Avonte Maddox, struggling in his first game back, but you haven't played in 12 weeks or 14 weeks, so that's a hard ask to, think that he's just going to come in and fix everything. Same with Slay. Like, adding the corners isn't the main issue. So when it comes to the playoffs, it's, your offense is going to have to carry the load, and the defense is going to have to try and just get a stop here and there, and hope that, if there's anybody that has a puncher's chance better than anybody in the playoffs that isn't the Niners, it's the Eagles. Like, you can't overlook the Eagles, because if you get an Eagles A game, they are one of the more dangerous teams in the NFL. But that just hasn't happened yet. And the question is, will it ever this season? I don't know. And I can't say that, oh, I'm confident if we were to go up against the Niners or the Cowboys at this point. Like, I can't say that. But that doesn't mean that going into the game that I don't think there isn't a possibility. And that's the part where, I try to stay positive, and I'm just going to see how this team responds, because this is the most adversity they've had since, 2021. And, there's a very good chance that, the Eagles, screwed up their chance of getting the 2 seed, but that doesn't mean that their first round matchup is going to be, or the second round matchup is going to be the Niners. I mean, it could end up being the Cowboys, and, the whole script could change and how we get there. And maybe if we build a couple wins and then we face the Niners in the title game, then who knows what'll happen. So it's like, you got to have that mentality going in. And even if we do lose to the Niners in the divisional round, that, let's say they win next week, they're a 12-5 team. Like, this isn't a signal to fall apart. They were just at the Super Bowl last year. You played all the way to February and you lost, and now you have to come back in here. You were 10-1, you were grooving. That's still hard to do in general, and you're coming back in and responding with a 12-5 season when about only 30% of the teams that lose a Super Bowl go to make the playoffs after again. So it's like they're already been more successful in this span than most teams respond to losing a Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, if they don't get as far as they had hoped, it's not going to be the most disappointing thing, because we still know that the pieces are there and that championship window is still open. The disappointing part is, how open is it going to be? Because that could have, the other disappointing part is that could have been the last game of the core 4 in Philadelphia. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, and Lane Johnson. That could have been their last game. We don't know. And we don't want to think about that just yet, because it's not over. The season isn't over. But those guys were such huge staples and were the big reason of the Eagles' success up until now. They are also just key contributors. So to lose that many key contributors, that would be a major blow to this team. So this was last year and this year were the best chances that we had of really trying to take over and at least secure the dub in the Super Bowl. But it's looking less likely this year, but I'm not as out as I was on Monday. On Monday morning, I've
he was down bad, y'all.
I was pissed, guys. Like, it was really bad. But
he rallied.
Yeah, the players gave me more confidence. Like, the way they've responded, the way they've backed Nick. At the same time, regardless of what happens, things are going to have to change in the offense, or the offense and defense. They're going to change in the offseason. More new faces need to come in, or people who can provide better answers are going to have to come in, but it shouldn't be the case with a coach like Sirianni. Sirianni might have to get to a point where he has to take the reins of play calling again, and he doesn't want to do that, which is scary, because, you see guys like Mike McCarthy do it, but you also see him, the play calling's good sometimes, but then you're seeing him, fumble this late game situation stuff. But the problem is Nick Sirianni is fumbling the late game situation stuff in a way that, again, you're not calling plays, you should be handling that. And
Right.
that will be concerning, and that's something he needs to clean up. And the players executing is a whole nother story. But I also think that, their defense of the coaching staff is fine. I appreciate it. But when you watch the tape, when you watch the games, the coaching staff needs to get creative, needs to be aggressive, needs to call plays down the field. You have players who can convert these plays. Give them a chance. Like, you're not paying AJ Brown $100 million to, be a blocker on a screen. You're not. Like, do the goal ball route. I don't care if it's an interception, but at least you're giving him a chance at that point of the game. Because even if it's a turnover, you're same kind of issue. They weren't going to have enough time to score, like completely close you out. And that was another thing too. Sirianni called a timeout on the very last possession, the play right before they got into the end zone, and the Cardinals weren't like taking their time. Like, they were going for it. Don't waste that last timeout, because that was a timeout they could have used like at that last possession. And it's just all these things kind of played into it, and it was just we're seeing a 1-4 stretch is the worst stretch that we've seen in a long time. It's tough to kind of process, because we're so used to this team being on the same page and successful. So hopefully, even if you're only 2 wins in this last stretch, we're against the Giants, a win is a win, and you can build off of that. And if you get the Bucs first round, you can beat them. So that can, start something, who knows? So if I really had any final thoughts on this, the season isn't over by any stretch, but I'm not as confident as I was before, but I'm more confident than I was after the loss, especially hearing the way the guys responded. It makes me more confident for the offseason, and maybe in the sense that maybe Howie will actually wake up. This was the wake-up call he needed to go get himself a linebacker, go get himself a quality safety, go, maybe retool a bit and just take some risks in spots that they normally wouldn't have. And, sometimes you can get complacent with what works, and a wake-up call is all you need to fix things.
No, that's a good point. So my final question is, how vital is it that you guys win this game against the Giants?
Extremely, only because we're not out of the 2 seed. It sucks. We're not in control of it, but if the Cowboys somehow screw up, because it's not impossible, if they screw up against the Commanders on the road, the Eagles will get the 2 seed if they win. So you can't not try. You can't not, if they're up big, sit guys. Like, because that's what you're going to need. Like, you're going to play to win, and if the Eagles can secure the win and play their backups, that's as good as a result as you can ask for. You got to give the guys as much rest as they can going into the first round matchup. But again, when we look at the playoffs here, I'm not really concerned with what's going to happen here. Because I'm going to be rooting for whoever the 6 or the 7 seeds are, because that would help me, avoid a date with the San Francisco 49ers. So I want to save that for as long as I can. So I'm going to be pulling hard for the Rams and maybe the Packers or whoever's the 7th seed. So
That's fair.
Yeah. So, but listen, it is what it is. If we have to go out in the second round, I'm not worried about that either, because a playoff win, especially, it would suck if we lost to Tampa that first playoff game, because that would kind of be a low key full circle moment, because that was Jalen's first playoff loss after, we tough first season, and then we recovered, and then we lost. But hopefully he looks better. There's a lot of factors that'll play into this, but Nick Sirianni's job is safe. Hopefully the guys can just make some adjustments, but the playoffs are going to be fun, because I don't know what to expect anymore, and I'm going to be paying attention. I'm going to be focused on everything that's happening there, and I thought I was going to be in your position, but I'm not. So it's going to be fun, to say the least.
Yep. Well, Hey, it's going to be, you nailed it on the head. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. Something else that is interesting right now, we're going to kind of shift gears.
Okay.
The Sacramento Kings won a killer game last night that went
Oh,
to
yeah.
double overtime against a successful, fun to watch Orlando Magic team
That was missing half of their team.
that was missing a lot of guys. Two, in fact, got injured in the game with Franz Wagner and who was the other guy?
Was it Suggs? But he came back in,
No,
right?
it wasn't Suggs.
I'm trying to remember who the other guy.
Gary Harris.
Oh, that's right.
Gary Harris
yeah,
went
that's
out.
right.
So they already were banged up. Then they got even more banged up in this game. And then the Sacramento Kings took a 16-point lead and then blew it and then let the Orlando Magic, who averaged 10 3-pointers per game, put up 25 for a franchise record. Look, great win. Great win. All right.
Yeah, we pulled
Double
it off.
overtime. Look, the refs were awful for majority of this game, but that call at the end of OT1 where Paulo Banchero had the ball, he went to do like a gather, and it goes off of his hand and out of bounds. I think they at first ruled it King's ball, and then they overturned it without even reviewing it, just overturned it to Magic ball, and then didn't go to actually review it, even though you're at the end of a game when it matters. Like, they were just like, oh, Magic ball, okay, let's go. And it's just like, are you serious? And then they inbound the ball. Paulo puts up a easy layup. And here we are, double overtime with zero momentum. The Kings had to dig deep for this win. And it was a good win. It was a great win if you look at it from the fact of it was our first back-to-back win all season long. So we broke that curse. Thank you, guys. But there are some glaring issues with this team. And I'm not sure that one trade will fix those issues right now, if I'm being honest with you.
I agree. Okay, so first off, shout out to Malik for being awesome and proving why he will be the sixth man of the year, and shows
get paid a ton of money.
And that's going to be the part that that's going to be the caveat we're going to have to pay attention to as the year goes on. But it's hard to argue unless you're getting back an insane player. Why it's hard to argue like how you would even trade this dude, and it sucks because you may have to capitalize on it, because I don't know if he's the kind of guy, and I don't know him personally. I don't know if Foxy has anything to do with it, but I don't know if he's the kind of guy who would take the hometown discount. I think he would take the discount of like maybe 80 million versus 100 million because we believed in him. But, you have his best friend De'Aaron also passing up on the extension to go for the Supermax, which he is very clearly going to get if he continues to play at this level and get an All NBA again. Like he's going to. He's going to. So we already Supermax Domas. So we're going to be in this position where the cap is going to matter. And that would mean, listen, let's trade guys like Kevin. Let's trade guys like Harrison. Let's clear up our cap a little bit in that area. So maybe if, whatever trade we have doesn't pan out. So let's say, for example, the name that's all the rage around the Kings right now is Siakam, right? So let's say we get Siakam. He doesn't, it doesn't work out the way we're going to, or we lose him in free agency. We would still have enough cap to bring in whatever free agent we would want, at least one, to like major name. So it wouldn't be impossible to like recover from a failed trade, but who we give up would matter a ton. And I don't know. It's just like, I wonder if we can make a trade for a couple dudes, that'd be great. But I would take a Siakam. I would take a Kuzma. We need more size in the building. I'm tired of, unless we're getting a physical guard like Caruso or Thibault, guys of that nature. If we're getting someone like that, that's fine. I can take another guard so long as we're not, if we're getting a guard for a guard. I don't want all guards on this team, and that's the problem. We're just a little too small. Domas did great yesterday, big boying Batazde all day. 20 10 triple double is insane, especially after he came off of a triple double the other day. So
wasn't he like the first player since Wilt to put up that?
That specific stat line of what, 22 points, 23 boards, and 12 assists.
12 assists, yeah.
So
wow.
It was great. And they asked Malik after the game, who also he had 9 assists. They're like, "Oh, didn't you want to go for double double?" And he's like, "Oh, I mean, I would have had it if Domas didn't miss a bunch of easy ones."
I gotta get with my guy Domas about those. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so it's funny, and that definitely. So when I look at this team, the weakest spot on that lineup is our starting 2 and our starting 4, or 3, whoever whatever we call Harrison. Harrison played well, but and it's weird because I wish he was more aggressive, like consistently, just in terms of like driving the paint, forcing that kind of pressure, because he's very, very good at that. And again, the Kings like to settle. Keegan did a really good job yesterday of at least trying to be creative. He, technically got Franz Wagner hurt after doing a nice little move, and he was, aggressive with his shot, made big shots, especially after like he missed pretty badly on like 2 shots before he had the shot to tie it or take the lead. I forget exactly what that was. I think it was to tie it late in the 4th. And I was, the potential with Keegan is still there. So I love what I'm seeing from him, especially with he was hustling. He was playing with really good effort. And I think part of it was playing, Paulo. They're in the same draft class. You want to show a little bit, and with this team, what the biggest issues that I'm worried about is stuff that's been continuing to be an issue. Turnovers, they have to stop. Like, this is bad. Like, especially recently. We were really good at it early on in the season, but it's been a lot worse as it's gone on. And I think we matched the Magic with turnovers yesterday. Like, it was even, but I think we had
It was still insane though.
Yeah. What was it? It was over 20, right?
Yeah, I'm looking. So actually, the Kings had 17 turnovers
17.
and the Magic had 20. So
yeah, but
17 won't get it done unless the other team's turning it over somehow more than you.
Exactly. And with the Kings have found, and we had a bunch of turnovers against Charlotte as well. So back-to-back games with not that great turnover situation. That's not gonna. You're in a playoff series. That's not gonna work. And one other thing is
against. Sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
no,
look, against the Magic, who are the 4th best team defensively in the league, it kind of makes sense. Sure, I'll give you that, but not against a team like the Hornets. Anyway, continue.
Right, and the Magic again. We have to state it. They were playing without a bunch of their defensive stars. Like Jonathan Isaac was hurt, and then Franz Wagner got hurt. And again, they weren't playing with Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz. So like they had guys who can put up numbers, and they were playing with a weaker version, and they took us all the way to the end. And again, that was part of second night of a back-to-back, especially after losing a dumb one to Charlotte that we shouldn't have. So there's a lot of things. Again, shout out to the team for being resilient and winning. That's always important, but you continue to struggle with turnovers. You continue to struggle at the free throw line, which is the easiest aspect of the game. The Kings are literally the worst team in the NBA at free throw percentage. They're shooting 72% as a team. And I don't know if part of that is just because Domas takes a lot of them, but I mean, Domas needs to be better. De'Aaron needs to be better. Malik and De'Aaron missed back-to-back free throws. Like, you're not going to be able to win if you can't do the easy stuff for yourselves. And especially in the playoffs, every point matters. And if we're shooting 72% free throws in the playoffs, we're going to lose. We're going to lose bad. And that's the part that worries me. And again, I agree with your sentiment that a trade maybe doesn't fix that, like doesn't fix those little issues. But I do think that maybe, a trade, it's tough because Mike Brown does this thing where he rewards players. And I don't know if it's a product of like keeping guys fresh, right? Because like he gave Davion minutes, he gave Chris Duarte starting minutes, and we're not seeing Keon or Sasha. We're seeing different rotations bit by bit as the year goes on, and it's just like I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this.
Yeah, like, Keon's completely like fallen out in the last 3 or 4 games.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's I think that's part of Mike's style of keeping guys engaged, right? Like, oh hey, listen, you're not going to play every game, but if you are ready and you show up ready and you make a play, then I will reward you with more playing time until it's time for someone else to step up and do the same thing. Right. So then I feel like once playoffs come, it's going to be 9 guys. Like, that's it. And it will be a specific 9 based off of the matchup that we have. But I don't know. I'm worried. Again, doing great. 20 wins. We're 20-13. Like, that's great.
And our record at this point last year wasn't as good as we are right now. Like, there is, I know it feels so much worse because we got blown out way more times already this year than we did all of last year, right? But our record is better and we're still trending in a positive direction. Like, it's everything's there. Just need to figure things out. Like, we're 33 games into the season. It's an 82 game season. And there is a bright spot called the trade deadline coming up. And especially January 15th when Kuz's contract comes into effect, where he's now, available for a trade. Like, we could really start to see some movement around that. Yeah. And guys will either play a lot better when they hear their names on trade rumors, or they'll completely shut down, like Kevin Huerter. And it's kind of upsetting to see. I just want to talk about that for 2 seconds. Kevin now, he'll get, I think he's averaging maybe 12 minutes a game. Like, that's just kind of, I'm just pulling a number out of my head here, but he's not getting many minutes. And the minutes that he's coming out now and playing, they're not effective because he's doing the Jimmer Fredette thing. And that's where he's trying so hard. He's desperately trying to just make an impact to, incorporate himself into the system again. When last year he was a vital piece, right? But this is one of those effects that can happen when you're viewed as not a vital piece of the system and then starting to be viewed as a trade piece. Like, these guys will be like, well, shoot, I got to go out and I got to make some noise. Like, I got to, I got to do this. I got to do that. And then it's frantic. And then it's like, all right, go sit your ass down. Like, this is not what I needed from you in the 12 minutes. So it's upsetting to see that. But a guy like Davion, he kind of started stepping up a little bit. And he was involved in trade rumors last year around this time. And around that time, he stepped up. This time, the minutes that he was asked to play defensively, he's been awesome. Like, I've seen really good things. It's just a matter of that offensive side of the ball, which has gotten worse and worse and worse through his career, and it's driving me nuts.
He's practicing at it, and it sucks because I wanted him to work out. I believed in him because of his aggressiveness on defense, but it's like, dang, dude. I watch him play, and I'm like, this is why you don't get minutes.
You can't teach the defense that he plays, but you can shoot so many times that it becomes so repetitive that you'd at least get better than he is now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like you just said, he's doing that, and it's just not. It's not getting better.
It sucks.
It's frustrating.
So, let me ask you this: does it feel like I don't, because I totally forgot about this because of all the movement that happened during the offseason. It would be really nice, and I can't believe I'm saying this, it'd be really nice to have somebody like Terrence Davis on this roster. Do you remember him?
Do I remember him?
Dude, what do you think about that? Because you watch Keita doing his thing in Boston, and I thought to myself coming into the offseason, I was like, Keita could be our backup big. So I wonder if some of those sacrifices that we made. I don't even know if Terrence Davis is on a roster right now. I don't think he is. That's the weird part about it. But what he brought and the energy and the effort that he had, I wondered he could be a great addition sometimes in certain spots.
Let me put it this way: in my opinion, he would provide a bigger impact and a better impact offensively than Chris Duarte does defensively and offensively.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you watched last year in the playoff series. Obviously, it wasn't the ideal situation, but Mike Brown trusted Terrence Davis enough to try and guard Steph Curry. That was the level of impact that he had for this team, and his ability to create out of structure was really important sometimes. And he provided a spark that, was a heat check guy, but it was valuable. And I don't know, and especially in a guy like Keita too, I'm like, man, I wish we had his length. I wish we had his, size on the court, because that would have helped in a lot of these situations. And
Cough, cough, Lowry, Markkinen.
Yeah, he would be nice, but he doesn't want to leave Utah. And I mean, none of these guys
I
ever
know.
really want to leave the teams that they're a part of. Like, I understand that. And it's a part of the business. And,
Well, unless your
you
name
know,
is James Harden.
yeah, not anymore. He's happy in the Clippers.
You know what? I don't like James Harden anymore. I used to be pretty high up on him. And then ever since he started being a diva wide receiver, I I haven't been that high on him. But seeing him like genuinely having fun playing basketball again, similar with Russell Westbrook, actually exactly like Russell Westbrook for me. As much as I hate that Clippers team, I'm liking what I'm seeing from those two guys. And especially Russ taking that back seat and saying like, I'm gonna come off the bench behind these guys. Like that's something that's a career development for him, because 5 years ago, 3 years ago, he would have never said that. So
I love Russ, dude. I don't care. I'm such
yeah.
a like Russ is so great. He's and again, it's that maturity, understanding that you know what, my team would be better, and it still gives him the opportunity to run the team the way he wants to because he'll be in charge of the second unit. It's very much like what we're seeing Chris Paul in Golden State. Like Chris Paul didn't like the idea at first, but then when you're still the leader, nothing really changes. You're playing exactly the way you want, and then you get to anchor a unit that helps carry the team. That's important, and it's hard to find a good, true point guard, especially as a backup in this league. Like it's very, very obvious it's a piece that we're missing, even though we have Malik, who technically operates in that role, but he's a shooting guard, and I don't know, very few guys impact a game like Westbrook has.
So Malik, he is a shooting guard. He is our sixth man. But right now we have a starting shooting guard problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being honest with you. I mean, as Kings fans, we all know there is an issue at the starting shooting guard position. So my question now, I know I have an answer to this. And I'm curious to see what yours is. Should Malik be a starter at this point? Like with what he's shown, does it make more sense for him to be the starter?
I think it depends on the matchup. If we play a team like maybe Golden State, the smaller teams, maybe. But that's the problem. He's too small. It's like we can get out physical really fast with him and Foxy at the same time. Not to say that Fox isn't a good defender, can't play up, but we would get picked on really early, and that could set the tone. When we substitute Malik, and then when we substitute Fox out and then let Malik and Domas do their thing, it's not as much of a liability. That's the issue again with like all these guards. We have too many, and you can't have them all on the floor at the same time. It's one thing if we let's say for example we had Kuz, and we could run a team of Fox, Monk, Murray, Kuz, and Domas, and I'd be okay with that because at least there's enough size to kind of make up for it. But that's the kicker. But Monk and Fox can play together, very proven that they can, and they're not afraid when they're both on the floor together. But it's just like him. I think it just for this particular team, it makes more sense for him to be the sixth man.
Okay, that's fair. I at this point I think he should be starting. I agree with you in the matchup sense. It kind of depends, right? But then I look at a game last night where the Magic are huge in comparison to the Kings. Like they are a ginormous team.
Yep.
And Malik put up 37 on him, and he was the go-to guy for a majority of that game because Fox played like garbage.
Yeah, he did not have a good game.
And so I look at a game like that, and I'm like, that would be considered going in. Like if he was our starting shooting guard, depending on matchups, you and I wouldn't start him in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you did start him, he probably would have put up 37 points, right? And so it's like
That's fair.
It's one of those situations I almost feel like I'd rather have a sixth man problem than a starting shooting guard problem at this point, just considering what I'm seeing from the second unit in general.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Malik out there, I don't trust the second unit now to get it done, because the starters aren't necessarily getting us a big enough lead like they were last year. That was something that they were doing. The starters aren't making that big enough impact. And so I'm like, all right, if I can't rely on the bench to sustain or build, then I need to input a better shooting guard or a better whatever. And at that point, it is the shooting guard so that I can dominate a team early and then sustain and then go into the normal rotation. And then you could play Malik similar like you would the sixth man role the rest of the time. But to start the game for the first, let's say 7 minutes, run Domas, Foxy, and Malik together, and Keegan.
And that's
I
fair.
don't think a team keeps that. That matchup has proven to be nightmare for teams in the fourth quarter. So what's the reason we can't start and end a game like that? That's where I'm at right now.
No, that makes sense, especially since we spend a lot of our time ending the game with that scenario. And I wonder if that's just I don't know if that's just a relationship that like Mike and Malik have developed, saying like, hey, you're going to be the sixth man by technicality. You're going to be the first one off the bench most times, but you're going to play more minutes than any of the other the shooting guards that we're going to see anyway. So what would
Lou
be
Williams, baby?
Yeah, Lou Will, baby. So it's like, what's the point? And I do agree. I do agree with you on that. I don't see the issue, but I also wonder if maybe it is just without Malik there right away, it puts the onus on Fox to have to be more aggressive right away, and him being more aggressive right away, because you see him defer to Monk sometimes, but Monk also defers to him because they have that connection. But I wonder if there's too much power on the floor right out of the gate, which there's nothing wrong with that. But like for this particular team where Fox, like we are most successful when Foxy and Domas are the main engines, and Domas can get going with anybody, whether it's Malik, whether it's Fox, whether it's any one of our other guards there who runs the pick and roll with him. Like Fox, I think if we're saying like, hey, you have to be the guy to take over first quarter and in the end, you need to be consistent the whole time. Maybe not giving him as many options to like kind of bail out allows us to be, I don't know, successful. That's just an idea. I don't think that that's actually the reason, but you know, I just wonder if that would have a part to play. If Malik was starting next to him, how would Fox's stats, differ? Because it's almost like as if like, oh, we had Tyrese Halliburton on this team, right? You can't play them together, but if you played one in charge of one unit, one in charge of the other, it works better. So I just wonder.
But that was the weird part is that they took that chance. They did, when we had Tyrese, it was Tyrese ran the second unit, and then it was Tyrese started. We haven't seen Malik start that I can recall. I haven't seen like a consistent stretch at least where Malik's starting a game. I don't even think he started a game.
No, he hasn't. No, because whenever Herter was hurt, he was starting Duarte or Ellis, or it was one of those other guys. So,
and when Fox was hurt, it was Davion or Keon. Yeah, like it's. Yeah, I would just be curious at this point, especially with the run of the last 10 games. Why not throw Malik in there and just see? So let's see what happens.
Worth a shot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, like, there's no wrong answer until it happens, right?
Yeah. I wonder if you keep him at 6-man, though. I don't know. Maybe Mike has convinced him. He's like, you're going to win 6-man if you play the way you do with the minutes that I'm going to give you. And that's an award that matters. Like, you'll get recognition for it. I don't know. I don't know. It is an interesting question. And part of the reason why, we don't trade him, in my opinion, is because he's just that important off the bench. But it's also hard because if the right offer's on the table, I would give up Malik. But it's tough to think about because that ruins chemistry, because Malik gets along with everybody because he's that kind of guy. So do you sacrifice that level of chemistry for a potentially, I wouldn't call it better fit, but technically that's what it would have to be if you're trading Malik Monk. Yeah. If you're trading Malik, it's for a better fit. It has to be for something better. But if we can get away with, because if let's say if we have to sacrifice Kevin and HB or Duarte and HB or something of that nature, right? You get rid of the guards and HB, you bring in a wing or maybe a couple, more, even if you're bringing a wing like Kuzma or Siakam or Markkanen, you're adding the size. You get rid of Herter. Then it's, Monk. You can start Monk, or you can start Keon, or you can get minutes for Colby Jones off the bench, if you don't have to settle for Chris. That's the thing. We have guard options. So I just wonder, like, man, if we just trim one of them away, get more size, maybe we become sneaky and end up with a backup big that actually can contribute a little bit more than what we have. That'd be great too. So again, we're missing those two pieces, like a backup big, like a legit backup big that can bully teams and be physical, and a legitimate shooting guard that's not Malik, a legitimate starting shooting guard. So
yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, the Malik problem is a good problem to have. It's just, it puts us in a weird predicament because now we have to figure out what we actually need and what. This is kind of the reason why you put him in the starting lineup like now and figure out if it does work.
mm-hmm.
And if it does work, okay, we have a 6-man problem versus let's say we get through the trade deadline and then we try this out and then it's like, well, shoot, now we have a 6-man problem. We have no way to freaking fix it. You know what I mean? Like that's where my head's kind of at too. But
and then the solution is, put Malik in 6-man. There you go. Then that solution's fixed, and then you can figure out the other problem while you make it work. I see where you're going with. You've sold me a little bit more on it,
right?
In that regard.
You're gonna hate this question.
Okay, let's see it.
How untouchable is Keegan Murray?
He is the third most untouchable player on this team. There are so few people, like, I don't even know who I would give up. Like, if you're telling me, hey, I'm going to trade this guy for Keegan, I'm thinking to myself, I've seen too much of, like, what I know Keegan can be, and he's still only in his second year. Yeah, he's an older second-year player, but, I mean, the NBA is such a weird place, right? Because let's think about, it's not like the NFL where your championship window is 2 to 3 years with some guys because the money's going to get out of control, and you can't do that big of a roster. In the NBA, you can have like a 6 to 7 year window, and that's kind of the situation we're in. Like, we can afford a few mistakes, we can afford to be patient. So it's like we took the aggressive approach by getting Domas. Great, Fox and Domas in the same little, age group here. That we got at least 5 to 6 good years of Domas and 5 to 6 good to great years of De'Aaron left. Keegan's going to fit in that timeline. We have at least, hopefully, the goal 8 to 10 years of good to great Keegan. And when you have a guy that's that young and has shown that much potential and is improving, like, and the question, I feel like part of it is like he's been inconsistent offensively. Like, you're seeing him miss shots that last year he just wasn't missing because he was hitting at a 40% clip, but his role's entirely different. Like, he is carrying more load defensively. He's playing more minutes than he was as a rookie, and he's still being asked to contribute the same way offensively. And his shooting took a dive at the beginning, but now it's starting to come up, and obviously he had the explosion. That's all there, and that's all true. And I think as he continues to take more chances, as he continues to develop in his role, by the time year 4 or 5 comes around, it's going to be insane, and he's going to be a much better player. So that's just my stance, and that's why I wouldn't trade him. But you did mention there was a couple guys that you would trade for. Who would those guys be?
Yeah, so the two guys that I'm thinking are guys that are not going to be leaving their team anytime soon.
Fair enough. This is hypothetical. All hypothetical
this is
here.
Definitely hypothetical, and this is, I would like to say straight up, but money-wise, it would never work.
That's fair.
So I'll just put this out there now. Like, these trades will never happen, right? But who I would take in return for Keegan in terms of, like, where I put him in that rank is I would do a straight up with Chris Middleton, and I would do a straight up with Brandon Ingram.
Okay, Ingram makes more sense than Middleton. I would do
Are we
Middleton. Talking about right now? Because like, Middleton's kind of he was recovering from injury, but BI on this team would be nasty. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, BI on this team would be nasty, and that's fair. Middleton, I didn't realize was injured or dealing with injury this year.
Like 2 to 3 years ago, Middleton makes perfect sense to me.
Even last year, I'd have done it.
That's right.
Like, if it's a last year Chris Middleton, I would have done it as a win now move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about getting to that next level? That's it. Obviously, Keegan is the future of the Sacramento Kings, and these trades won't happen. So
the BI one's not impossible. New Orleans has a weird thing going on because there's no shot BI and Zion like each other. They don't like playing with each other.
They can't. They both demand the ball.
Either one of them, like when one of them's out, the other one plays way better. They clearly cancel each other out, and they both play the same style where they don't want to give that big of an effort on defense. But like, BI is the better player.
Let me give you 3 guys, and I need you to say yes or no straight up for Keegan Murray. Don't worry about money. And yes, this season. Okay.
Okay.
Paul George.
No.
Really? All right, that's fine. Moving on.
No, that's fair. He's hurt, and that's the I can't.
I know. I feel you.
He can't stay healthy.
DeMar DeRozan.
No. It's tough, and for him, it's like he doesn't play good enough defense.
I know. I get that.
If the offense justified the defense, then yeah.
All right. Well, I got one more then.
Okay. LeBron James. I'm just kidding.
No, this one I know your answer. Jason Tatum.
That's tough. That one's actually
Is
tough.
it tough?
It is. I'm getting right now. Jason Tatum, like a dude that like when he's posting up, it's an instant bucket. Like
this is a heartbeat decision.
I would do it. I would do it. Yeah. Like yes.
Jason Tatum, bro.
It hurts my soul, but if they're
He's
telling
in his
me
prime too.
If they're telling me JT for like
no.
Keegan straight up, like that's it. Great. Like yeah. Based off of where they're at now, of course. And the thing is, there's a part of me that thinks, oh, Keegan can develop into that level, like maybe a tier under. Mm-hmm. But like if he's anything close to that, then it's a success in my opinion. I want Keegan to be the great thing about where Keegan's at is he doesn't have to come out to be the best player on this team because we have our best 2 players. He just needs to come out to be either the second best or the third best guy. Yep. And in a very clear way where he contributes in a way that, oh man, we have a big 3. That'll be a success. That's all this team needs. We just need that. We don't need, I mean, hey, if he ends up eventually being the best player on this team, I'm not going to complain about that. But that's, De'Aaron came into this team with the pressure that he needed to be the face of the franchise by the time he develops into the player that he is now. And he has excelled to our wildest dreams to the point where we wanted him to. And Domas, we're like, okay, can he be the Robin to De'Aaron's Batman? And holy crap, yes, he is. So we're hitting in those spots. Now we just need Keegan to develop into that third guy, and I'm feeling happy about it. So, but yes, for the Tatum to Keegan straight up, that's a very hard.
You know what I just realized about what you're talking about? So you made the little comparison with Jason Tatum and Keegan being just a little bit under him, right? Mm-hmm. Jason Tatum was drafted in 2017. His teammates at that time, I'm just going to name 2 of them, Kyrie Irving and Al Horford. Those were probably the top 2 guys. I mean, Jaylen Brown was on that team there. So, top
he was
3.
Still developing, though.
Jason Tatum was developing. My point is, Jason Tatum wasn't the go-to guy at that point. He wasn't the go-to guy since day one. He was in a Keegan Murray position in 2017 and 2018. And until Kyrie left that team, and then they started and then Horford left, and they started banking on, okay, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and then we'll see how that works, and then we'll go from there kind of thing. Like, it's kind of similar to what the Kings got going on, because obviously Foxy is not Kyrie Irving, and he's not going to be taking a dip away from the Kings anytime soon necessarily. I hope that doesn't bite me in the butt. And then Domas is here for a long time too. But look at Keegan. He's got all these years now to develop behind these 2 guys who are asked to carry the load. And he gets all this time to develop with them, get a contract with the Kings that hopefully is favorable for both parties. And then when Foxy and Domas are out of their prime, whatever happens, whether it's trades, whether it's retirements, or it's just different roles, right? Then Keegan's going to be asked to do more, and it might favor him because he's had all this time to develop, and he'll be hitting his prime at the right time. Like, it makes so much sense for us to hold on to Keegan over Malik, but it's so hard to let any of these guys go.
You might have to. It's the price of being a fan. and
Yeah.
wanting all these things because you want the win now moves. You want all the splashy moves. You want your team to be the one that wins. And you watch a team like Denver. Why the hell have they been so successful? Because they have banked on their guys. They stuck with Jamal. They grew Michael Porter. They stuck with Jokic. And then all of a sudden you add your couple glue guys with Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon, KCP. Boom, you got your team. And
that team was a project. Keep in mind, everybody, that team was a project for like 6 years.
That's what I'm saying.
5 or 6 years. And they didn't think they had 5 or 6 years with that team. They thought they had like 3 or 4. So
the NBA is a different animal when it comes to team building. Some teams can do it right away. And you look at the Warriors, it took them time too. Like Steph had to grow into what he was. Steph and Clay had to grow into what they were. Draymond ended up being the piece. Like, it happens. And then you add a piece like Kevin Durant, and next thing you know, you're unstoppable. But it's like the Kings are on that path. We have 2 All-NBA players, like proven All-NBA players. We have a burgeoning young star in Keegan who has at least 2 to 3 more years to really become the player that we want him to be.
Right.
But the problem is, if we want to win right now, we would kind of want him to take that step a little sooner. And, that's not his fault.
But he needs to average 47 a game. I don't care.
Exactly. He showed he can do it once, so he has to do it consistently. And like we watched Porter Jr. have good games for the Nuggets, but I've never seen him kind of play to this. Yeah. Keegan's more consistent. He can play both sides better, and that's what I think is going to translate more as his career goes on. But that's why I believe in the potential that he's going to provide for us. So if we can build around that, that could be the best way to win now. But let's be honest, guys, the Kings are still very much a work in progress. And we will be, when you watch, like you mentioned, the JT and Jaylen Brown, they themselves were a project. Jason Tatum got brought in 2017, and then it didn't take them until 2019. And now they've been to 5 straight conference titles. So, and 1 NBA finals, loss, but like development happens. And if Monty's done such a good job at developing and like bringing in the right guys and team building and taking risks and taking chances, that I know that he's just waiting for the right moment and waiting for the right player to show up. I don't know who it's going to be though.
Yeah. The more that we have this conversation, the happier I'm feeling with where the Kings are at, because I'm like really starting to think about the fact that we've really only had Domas now for a season and a quarter, because the trade deadline is not the halfway point of the season. Right. You're only given like 30 games at that point. I think they moved it forward or pushed it back now. I can't remember, but but we've really only had Domas for that long, which means we've really only been able to technically rebuild since a season and a quarter. Because where I consider a rebuild, I don't consider it from ground up. And the problem is we've been in rebuild mode for like 16 years, 17 years, right? Yeah. At least feeling like we're at the stage 1 of rebuild for that long, that it's like, now that we got our taste of playoffs, we're like, it's finals time. Like, we're here. It's time to go to the finals.
Exactly.
No. Ease off. I need to ease off because I'm like, it's time to go to the finals. No, we will get there. We will get there. I firmly believe that. It's just, there are things that need to happen with this team. Monty recognizes that. I think the core of this team recognizes that. I guarantee you, if you were to ask Fox and Domas and Keegan and Malik, like straight up without having any cameras or microphones around them, like, do you think this team could get it done right now, or do you guys need more? They'd be like, no, we need more. Like, we need something else. And then we will take that leap. And like, we're going to get there. And
yeah,
I don't know who it's going to be. Look, it's not going to be draft picks. I kind of feel like Monty has to start really diving into our draft picks for the future and seeing if there's something out there for a rebuilding team, like, the Nets, who have a Michael Bridges or something, like, I'm like brainstorming now at this point. Like, right. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We got better at this point in the season than we were last year.
Fox and Domas are playing better together. The more time they're playing together, they're just developing.
Yeah. And the thing was, the thing with last year was like we had one thing that we felt we needed to get really, really solidify, and that was the backup center position, right? Like all season long, we were talking about that backup center. The rest of it, we were feeling pretty confident in Davion as a backup point guard. Like there was other pieces that we felt a little more confident in then than we do now, and that's just because we saw more success last year than we've seen in 16 years prior to that. Now we saw this success last year, and we want more of it, and we're noticing that we're not getting more of it necessarily to the level we want, and we're like, this isn't working. This isn't working. This is a broken team. No, this isn't a broken team. They're struggling. They're matching up against teams who are a lot better this year than they were last year. And look, they're 20-13 in a absolutely loaded Western Conference, and they've proved that they can beat most of the teams above them and
some of the teams below them.
Some of the teams below them. But like we're right there.
We're right there.
We're on a very good path.
Yeah, this is what I said earlier. Like we are what we are right now, and that's okay. Like we might have to just accept that for right now because we're trending up, and who knows, maybe that won't translate the way we want it to. If it doesn't, it's okay, because if something negative happens, that's going to lead to a move that'll be aggressive, and if everything works, then everything works. So, listen, this Kings team is in a really good spot. But, the Western Conference is tough, but you're watching teams like the Lakers suffer. And now they're having questions about whether they're going to fire Darvin Ham or not after choking it off in the freaking, after the in-season tournament. And they're struggling. The Warriors are in a free fall. And, I mean, they're getting Draymond back, but what good has he done for them this year? So it's like you're seeing teams rise and fall, and the Phoenix Suns are coming back, but then they're only going to get hurt, fall down to earth. Same thing with the Clippers. They're doing great. Paul George is hurt. Kawhi's getting hurt again. They're going to fall down to earth. It will happen. To win a title, everything needs to fall in place. And for the Kings, it's been pretty good. Like, we've been pretty lucky, and now it's just a matter of, can we take that next step? And if it doesn't happen this year, it's gonna, the signs are saying, oh, Keegan is improving, and he's gonna take an even bigger step next year. And that, like, that's the goal. So if we can just focus on that level of internal development, that's what we're banking on. It's working. Like, the guys are consistent and the chemistry's there. It's just a matter of, can we clean up our defense, which we are better defensively than we were last year. It's not saying much because we were terrible last year, but, we're getting towards average. Our offense has declined, but we're finding different ways. Foxy has developed into a legitimate three-point threat in a way that we never anticipated, and it's expanded his game to a top 5 scorer in the NBA, who we haven't...
De'Aaron Curry.
Who we haven't had that luxury of since Boogie. Like, Boogie was the only other dominant player that the Kings have had that could be a top 5 scorer every single night. And now we have one in our guard position that's unbelievable to me. So, and we have a top 5 center, and we have a young star on a wing. Now we just got to fill in the gaps. And we have a 6 man of the year candidate. So, like, we have all the pieces, guys. Like, we're going to be okay.
We are going to be okay.
All right. Any final thoughts before we head out here?
No, man, I'm just going to get over this cold, and then I'm going to watch the Rams and the Niners and watch a game that is going to go down in the history books. And as for the Kings, they've got a semi-favorable schedule coming up. But the toughest game they probably play is against the Pistons, knowing how this team plays right now. So
we'll give them I know we're going to keep them in it the whole time. I'm excited to play the New Look Raptors tomorrow. I'm nervous because we played a double OT game and they're looking good right now. So it's like, we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Either way, and hopefully the Eagles recover and just go into the playoffs with a little bit of momentum. So I guess we'll see what happens there. But with that being said, this was episode 23 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com or any of our social media platforms such as TikTok, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, and you can find us on YouTube for all those audio listeners out there who want to see our pretty faces and interact. You can leave comments on there, give us a follow, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'm Marcos Codenegro, and beside me here is
Benny the Jet Rats, baby.
Also, Ben, I think I don't know if we actually developed this. Did I end up actually winning the picks this year?
I don't know, because there's one more week, and I don't know how many different different games we have, but
I know.
I would say it's safe to assume. I'm not giving you this yet. No, this is next week.
So we will reveal the winner of the first ever picks this year, and then next year we're going to mix it up to make it a little bit more challenging now that we have that under our wings. But
That's right.
But with that being said, guys, we hope you have a great start to your new year. Happy New Year. All that fun jazz. We will talk to you guys next week. Most likely. We'll let you know. It might be a Friday 5 next week, but we'll keep you posted. All right. Peace.
Peace.